Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 2 of season 2 of the Cycle Podcast. In this episode, we talk to Dan, who's married to Lauren, episode 1 in season 2, and he gives us his perspective on what it's like to be married to someone with endometriosis and how he supports his wife, Lauren. We also give some tips and tricks for any loved ones that might be trying to support you through your endometriosis journey. This would be a good episode to share with friends and family, and I also actually think it's very good for endometriosis patients. We talk about guilt and how we can overcome that as patients and how to ask for help. I hope you enjoy the episode. Thank you for listening. Hello, everybody, and thank you so much for listening to the Cycle Podcast. I'm your host, Melissa, and I am here with Dan. And if you just listened to episode 1 of the second season with Lauren, Dan is Lauren's husband. So this is the first time we've ever had a husband on, and, really grateful to have you, Dan. Thank you so much. We can't wait to hear your perspective.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm excited to be here and excited to, I guess, give some insight to the other half of the story.
Yes. Welcome to the show. So we just talked with Lauren, and we know, her journey and struggle so far, and, very similar to so many women with endometriosis. And she said that you were the one that really noticed that she was starting to go through this pain. So take me back to, how long have you guys been together?
So we've been together 5 years now. And
okay.
Married for most of it. So we where was I going with that?
That you love her so much, and she's the best.
That whole thing. Yeah, absolutely.
well, so you've been together for 5 years, so obviously you've seen her go through a lot of ups and downs. But in the beginning, when you first started dating her, did you notice anything that kind of stood out, before you guys were even married, like, gosh, she really doesn't feel good during these certain times of the month, even maybe when she wasn't on her period, or anything kind of stand out in the beginning?
Well, she, it's funny because I didn't even notice that she was having these symptoms, because she is very, stoic, I guess, about her pains. So,
yes.
She's one of those people that has a astronomical pain tolerance, and she just never, she was so used to it because it's something that she'd experienced since she was a teenager, and never really, never really let me into that, because it wasn't something that she just, I guess it didn't seem important, as time went on, because it was just normal for her. Right.
And she, a lot of women who have endo are stoic in that way, and we're so used to the pain that we deal with it, and we don't really realize how bad it is. But she even mentioned that you said to her, like, this doesn't seem normal. When did that point come into you? She said you're the one that almost kind of encouraged her to go to the doctor because she didn't seem like she was feeling so well. So what happened that kind of pushed you to say that to her?
I feel like it was just that it had kind of reached that point where I've dated other women in my life who also happen to have periods, and they, I kind of know, I have an idea of, I guess, of what a normal amount of pain would look like. And when someone can't even get up off the couch, it makes you start thinking that there's something going on there. Right. So, she's prone to just sucking it up, but, she's the kind of person that, if she was, if she got shot, she'd put a Band-Aid on it, and I'd be like, well, let's go to the hospital. She's like, no, I'll be fine.
Right. Exactly. No,
so
I get it.
It wasn't one push. It was probably a series of pushes. So.
And did you see like month after month, like, gosh, like she really is kind of down for the count? And obviously you want to be sensitive to that too, because you don't want to make her feel badly about it. But you started to get a heightened awareness that this didn't seem right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
And how did you approach that conversation?
Well, I think a big part of any relationship is just being open, and it is easy to say, hey, I think there's something going on, and I'm kind of worried about you. Let's, we need to figure out what's going on here. So,
Yeah.
it's tough, and I think sometimes the difficult part as a spouse is not knowing how to help. So,
Right.
I think that's important for any of the ladies listening, that sometimes your husband, if he doesn't seem like he knows what the heck to do, it's because he doesn't. And so,
That's a really helpful tip. Honestly, that is. Yeah. And
it's difficult sometimes to watch your spouse just sit there and suffer, right?
right, exactly. Yeah. So that, I mean, really gets into, we haven't had a spouse on the show or even significant other. And, what can we do to help communicate better to you? Because from our perspective, at least from mine personally, I have massive guilt because of the pain that I'm in. And sometimes we can't go to dinner with friends or something because I'm not feeling well. I
Mhm.
don't know. Lauren sounds like, she's probably just going to power through anyway, but sometimes there's times that I can't. So we have massive guilt asking you for help, and you're saying you kind of don't know what to do. What are the best ways that we can maybe gently ask for help, do you think, from our spouses?
Well, I think the big thing is going to be, I guess, uh, universally, I guess, asking for a bit of understanding first off, and making sure that the husband or spouse um, understands the condition.
Mm-hmm.
And when you're married, nothing's really off the table as far as dialogue goes, or it shouldn't be anyways. But I think it's just it's important that they understand what the symptoms are, and the level of pain that you do experience, and ways that, like, even if it's just simple things, like I know sometimes that I'm going to have to pull my weight in extra ways around the house, and things like that. So
Right.
just knowing those little things to kind of take some of the pressure off, I think are important.
Right. And then, you know, not that you might want to get all like touchy feely, but how does it make you feel? Like, do you struggle with this a little bit as well? I mean, are there times that, emotionally this is difficult for you? Obviously, you don't want to see your loved one in pain or going through anything, but
Hmm.
can you open up and tell us a little bit about, maybe, I'm sure maybe you've told her, maybe you haven't told her, but for people who have a harder time, maybe having that dialogue with their spouse, how it makes you feel?
Yeah, so, and sometimes it is really difficult, because you never want to make your spouse feel worse either. It's really hard to go to Lauren and say, um, yeah, physically I'm not experiencing the symptoms, but it's hard for me too, in a different way, right? So
Right.
you always feel empathy about the person that you're with. And um, it has been a bit of an emotional struggle, watching her be in pain, and some of the restrictions that come with that. And it's difficult to say sometimes, um, you know, this affects me too in a different way, because you don't want them to feel guilty about it, because there is a
Right.
lot of guilt associated with that. And I think that's something that you should never feel guilty about something that isn't your fault, I think.
Right. For sure. 100%. So that was a good tip about, helping around the house and being delicate, but also I think for you to be open with her and say, this is hard on me too. Not that you want to make her feel guilty, but just
Mhm.
that just shows that you love her and that you care about her.
Yeah.
And I know for my husband, he sometimes says that he feels helpless.
Yes.
And I'm sure you feel that way too. And for all the people listening out there, some people don't have as supportive husbands as it sounds like you are as well. And,
Hmm.
I think that that's really important too, is to make sure that your partner is supporting you. What are some of the other ways that you help to try and support Lauren when she's going through these things? Do you go to the doctor's appointments with her? I mean, clearly you're the one that pushed her to go to the doctor. Thank
Hmm.
goodness.
Yeah, and I go to the big ones. Eventually, when we're going to be meeting with the surgeon to look at those kind of options, I'm going to be going with her to kind of give that second set of ears. But some guys might be uncomfortable with that, and
Right.
some guys might not be. So I guess it just depends on the comfort level in someone's relationship when it comes to those types of things.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. Now, I'm going to get really personal, and you don't have to answer this question, but
Go right ahead.
I am curious, do you feel like this affects your sex life?
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, clearly when she's on her period and in massive pain, you're not like, hey, baby, let's get it on,
Well, you never know, right?
She's like laying on the couch crying. You're like, let's go. No.
Yeah, well, I mean, that puts everyone in the mood, right? So.
Yeah, of course. Nothing sexier. But I mean, open and honestly, do you feel apprehensive sometimes because you don't want to hurt her?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I think that's it can, I don't want to say it puts a damper on your sex life, but it absolutely can, because it's really difficult to say, okay, now I'm inflicting pain on you, which, that's not
nothing
that's
is
not
fun
ideal.
about that, right?
Yeah,
that's not the point of the exercise.
Yeah.
It's the point
unless
is
you're into that,
right, exactly. No judgment. But yeah, do you guys openly talk about that, or do you kind of avoid that conversation?
No, she'll just say, I can't today.
Yeah.
I'm in a ton of pain, or my pain's really bad, is usually and I'll know, okay, that's
yeah. And you're not going to be pushing.
Yeah. I think that's a great way to make them feel guilty, is to be, when they say that and kind of say, hey, my pain's really bad, it is to then get pushy about it, right?
Right. But then on the flip side, it's like, we don't want you to stop trying either.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think that's a struggle in a lot of relationships. And I don't know, I think the best way to deal with it is open and honest conversation.
Yeah, I think, really it just circles back to communication. And, that's the basis of every good relationship, really, is that open communication. And sometimes it's uncomfortable, and you just kind of have to do it.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. Any words of wisdom for other husbands out there, significant others, wives, girlfriends, boyfriends, from the perspective of someone who doesn't have the disease? I have the disease. So, for me, it's hard to see it from your perspective. And I would love A, your perspective, and B, any advice or tips that you would love to give those other people that are listening to this, or someone like me could send to their husband.
I think the most important thing is really just to listen to your partner and what they need. And sometimes they're not always going to be forthcoming about what they need too. So, I think it's just having that awareness of what your spouse needs is really important. And for the husbands, it is not your fault that they are in pain. So don't feel guilty that there's nothing that you can do to help. Just, try and find other ways to help, I think is the biggest thing.
Yeah, I agree with that. And, for the significant others that struggle with this, I think listening, like you said, is the most important. But sometimes we as endo patients don't want to open up as much. So like you said, like even doing something extra around the house, or heating up her heating pad, or running to the store and getting her, her favorite juice or vitamin water, or something, because you can tell she doesn't feel well. She may not be in a good place to be able to communicate what exactly she needs, but all of the things that she loves, and just showing just that little bit of extra love goes such a far way. Emptying the dishwasher, maybe throwing the towels in the washing machine, or, little things that help alleviate the things from her day to day, I think are huge impact, at least definitely for me personally, make a big difference, because it just takes one more thing off the list that I feel like I have to do, even though I don't feel up for doing it.
Yeah. And I think just taking, to the guys out there, I think you're just at times you're going to have to pick up some extra slack, and that's just that just comes with the territory. So you kind of just suck it up and do it, because you love the person you're with, and that's, they're more important than doing 10% more housework, really.
Exactly. And no, all the people who are listening, we have massive guilt all of the time. At least I know I do personally, even though my husband tells me not to, because, I feel insufficient, even though I know I'm not. It's hard for us to not feel that way because we want to be doing those things. And we just may need to be able to take that break and not be able to do it. So that is such a huge, I know it seems so simple, but it's such a huge weight lifted. And if, your loved one is writhing back and forth in pain, consider pushing them to go to the doctor or the ER, because they may have a ruptured cyst, and that did happen to Lauren when she was younger. And that is something that you need to see a doctor about urgently.
Yeah. And that's the thing too, is, being in that level of pain all the time, if you have other, like you could have appendicitis and not know it. So
right.
Being really mindful of the type of pain, I think is also really important too. So don't just write it off as endo pain, because it could be something else.
Yeah, that's absolutely true.
In addition to.
Yes, I know. I fully agree. And I think there's times I've avoided going to the ER that I probably should have because, I'm just endo pain. But you're right. It could be something more severe. And it's important to watch for changes in behavior too. So if like she kind of has up and down, cycle flow, you kind of know now. You guys have been together. You've been married 5 years, so you kind of know her ebbs and flows. But if you noticed something completely different or something off the beaten path, that's also a good time to encourage your loved one to maybe go see a doctor or go see help, because something else is going on. And she may tend to ignore it because she's just so used to dealing with it.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's, like I said, if she got shot, she just put a Band-Aid on it, kind of thing. So
she does sound like she's tough. I mean, she's very tough. Again, most women with endo, I feel like we just get to this point where we're like, we got this, our arm is like literally bleeding out and we're fine. But, yeah. I'm grateful that you encouraged her to go to the doctor. And again, for all the loved ones listening that may be listening to this, pushing, someone with endo, it's a delicate balance. But in 2018, I was very sick and I was getting into bed every single day after work. And I'm a crazy type A personality running around all the time. And about 30 days into doing that, my husband looked at me, or I looked at my husband and said, I haven't been feeling well lately. And he looked at me and he said, yeah, I know. You've been getting into bed every day after work. Think it's time to maybe go see the doctor? And I didn't, I kind of just started living with it. And it was good for him. He checked me up and I ended up having a bowel obstruction from endometriosis, and it could have killed me. And it's, we just get into these cycles of like, we're fine, but I had a major shift in my behavior and he noticed it, which was great. So that's also, like you said, like having that awareness. And if there's a shift in behavior, something is wrong. And you don't want to push too hard, but you need to be able to push your loved one to get the proper care that they need.
Yeah. And you never want to push someone to the point that it's starts to put another type of stress on the relationship. Really, if someone's not, I think that can be a bit of a hurdle too for some women is that hurdle of, okay, now there is something wrong, right? Yes. It's sometimes mentally a little bit difficult to accept because you want, everybody always wants to feel that they're fine. Yep. So
I think there's a big denial with this disease and as it progresses that we as patients, put ourselves into. I know I do it. I don't know if everybody does, but I definitely don't want to believe, that I'm not feeling as well as I am.
Yeah. And I think there is, the odds are stacked against ladies with endo too, because it seems like a lot of doctors aren't really informed and they try to find, it is a process of elimination usually to find it, but it seems like they're looking for every other reason that something else is wrong before they'll say, well, you probably have endometriosis. So
Yeah.
I myself, I have fibromyalgia. So it's extremely rare in men. It's like 2% of people that have it are men. And they kind of a similar story, actually. They basically looked for every other single thing wrong, and then said I didn't have anything before saying, oh, actually you do have something. So that's
So you can empathize, you understand what it's like.
yeah, definitely different pains, but it's it actually can be crippling for a lot of people. So it's
Right.
and it's something that is very commonly misdiagnosed or undiagnosed. So there is a parallel there a little bit.
Yeah, and I think, that's really good to mention too, for the loved ones, support your spouse and let them trust their gut, because if they know something's wrong, something's wrong. And sometimes the doctors are wrong and you need to support what they want. So if they need to see 10 doctors to find the right diagnosis, that's what they have to do. Stay on their side, always be on their side and not the doctor's side, because usually in our guts, we all know what's right and what's wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of women are told that there's nothing wrong with them and they have endometriosis, or they're told they're crazy, or they have IBS. And, to have a loved one be like, well, just listen to the doctor, is not going to help push them if they know that something else is wrong.
Yeah. And I think it's really important to, in this day and age, to be an advocate for your own health too. I think that's really important, because every doctor is going to have a different opinion too, which I think we've seen a lot of, especially with all the doctors Lauren's been to. She had one that when she was asking her questions, she was asking her very leading questions, which was kind of interesting. And then she made no indication to Lauren that she thought she had endometriosis. So our family doctor just referred her to another regular
OBGYN.
I think it was an OBGYN. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then Lauren went and pulled the medical reports that original doctor had looked at or done up for her. And then she said, highly likely that she has endometriosis.
And never said it to her, which is...
Never said it to her. So she left that appointment feeling, and here's another aspect, I guess, as a spouse that is really important, is being supportive when, because it can be really difficult, I guess, for a lot of people. When you go to a doctor's appointment, you're like, I need help, and they just go, well, it might be something else.
Yep.
And it feels it feels like all of your concerns have just kind of been dismissed, right?
Yes. And you start to question, myself personally as a patient, I'm sure you went through this too before you got your diagnosis. You start to think, is this in my head? Am I crazy? Am I making this up? Is this just stress? And you start to second guess yourself, and that's not fair and that's not right. If you know in your gut something's wrong, something's wrong. I mean, that's the bottom line.
Exactly. Yeah. And you really need to stick to your guns and have I guess it's also important too to have a spouse that will support you when you're when this is what's going on. It really helps to have a spouse that's going to support you in that as well.
Yes, it's very important. Spouse and even family and loved ones that may be giving you a hard time or don't believe you. I talk to a lot of women that say that happens. And my best advice to that is send them a podcast. It doesn't even have to be mine, or send them an article from the internet, or, there's information out there that validates everything you're saying. And if they don't believe you, then you may need to reevaluate that relationship.
Yeah, I think, the thing about this is one of the bright side of it is it can probably shine a light on a lot of flaws in a relationship that you may not have noticed otherwise until something
Right.
else might have happened, right? So
Right.
If you're finding that there's a pattern of inconsistent support, I guess you could say, that could be because I mean, again, the basis of this is open communication, and that's really important. So, if you're not getting this about this, there's a good chance that there's a lot of other things going on there too.
Right. Absolutely. Well, good. I mean, is there anything else any other tips or advice or anything else you want to say to everyone, Dan? I really appreciate you coming on and chatting with us and telling us how you feel.
Yeah, absolutely. It's I think the biggest thing to ladies with endometriosis is don't be afraid to tell your husbands, boyfriends, whatever, how we definitely do feel helpless sometimes, and it's really just it is a different type of struggle watching someone that you love and care about in pain and suffering and feeling that there's nothing you can do. So even it's like in the olden days when they would tell the husbands to go boil water when the wife was giving a baby, or when she was having a baby, right?
Yeah.
It wasn't for any purpose. It was just to keep the husband distracted. So sometimes just giving them a task might be enough.
I think that's really great advice, though. I mean, I'm even going to listen to you because, we try to be super women and say, like, we've got this, we're fine. But instead, it sounds like you guys really do want to help. And I know that I'm sure every guy does want to help, but sometimes I think we just feel bad asking. So I'm going to utilize that advice going forward. There's
absolutely no shame in asking for help.
Right.
I think that's in any good relationship, you should be able to ask for help and say, hey, I'm having a tough day. Can you help me out? And figure it out. But if you suffer in silence, then, a lot of times, you can be in pain and just kind of quiet and seeming standoffish, and you'll start to think, well, did I do something wrong? Like what's going on here? So, just saying, hey, my pain's really bad. Can you do the dishes for me? Or whatever it may be, right? It's just, I think that's so important.
Yeah, I think that's very, very, very good advice. And I appreciate it too. And I'm the same way. Sometimes I'll just get very stoic and quiet. And I'm sure my husband thinks, like, is she mad at me? What did I do? And it's really just because I'm trying to suck it up.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah. And I think it's important to remember that you don't need to. You don't need to suck it up, right?
Right. That's the point of relationships. We're here to help each other. And if the tables were turned and he wasn't feeling well, I would be running around doing everything I could to try and help him feel better. So I think, men and women are different. Our DNA is different, and we are programmed to be more caretakers. And that's just biologically how we're programmed. So I think it's harder sometimes for us to ask to be taken care of.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the bottom line. Yeah.
Yep, absolutely.
Well, Dan, I really appreciate it. Thank you so much. And if you have anything else to say, please say it now. And thank you for taking care of our endo sister, Lauren. And we look forward to her feeling better soon. And I hope she can get into a doctor sooner there.
Me too. It's been a long road so far, and I don't think the end isn't in sight by any means. So it's an ongoing struggle, and you just learn how to cope with it, right?
Yep, you keep fighting.
Mm-hmm.
That's
Absolutely.
all you can do. Okay, well, you guys have a great rest of your day. Okay.
You as well. Thank you so much for having me on.
Thanks, Dan. Okay, bye.
All right, bye-bye.
Thank you so much for listening to episode 2 of the Cycle Podcast. I really appreciate it. I hope you have a wonderful day, pain-free day, and you share this with anyone that might need to hear more information about endometriosis. Take care.
The podcast you just heard was made using Anchor. Ever thought about making your own podcast? Anchor makes it really easy for anyone to get started. It's a one-stop shop for recording, hosting, and distributing podcasts. Best of all, it's 100% free. Sign up now at anchor.fm/new. That's anchor.fm/new to get started.